the institution in Israel is voluntary, temporary, and poverty-based. Poverty-based versus race-based and kidnapping. Those three facts alone show that these institutions are worlds apart. One of the things I had to make sense of early in my Christian walk was, how do I make sense of slavery in the Bible? It's something that I had to think about a lot, because you can walk away with the belief that God is co-signing this institution, that the institution that we understand in the American context is what God was co-signing in Israel. And in this video, you will see that this is far from the case. It's an apologetic issue. So it's something that prevents belief in Jesus. It's a barrier. The barrier is the institution of slavery that prevents people from believing in Yahweh, from believing in Jesus. And it's also something that decreases faith in Christians instead of increasing faith, because God wants you to have confidence. So what I mean by that is, if someone asks you the question about slavery in the Old Testament specifically, what do you say? If it's crickets, then you walk away defeated. You walk away with a weakened faith instead of a strong faith. So hopefully this video can clear up some of those issues as well. In this video, I'm dealing with the Old Testament specifically. Now, I will touch on the New Testament in a follow-up video, so stay tuned to that. Another way this question gets asked is, how can you, black man, worship the religion of your oppressors when Christianity was used to oppress African people? Now, I am sympathetic to that objection, but this video right here will also dismantle that, specifically to show that what we see in Israel is not what was happening in the American context. So stay tuned for that. Let's get it. All right, so here are the 3 points. The institution in Israel is voluntary, temporary, and poverty-based. Voluntary, temporary, and poverty-based. So contrast that with what's happening in America, because we got to be careful. We can't import the image of what we know as slavery and suggest that that's what's happening in Israel. Voluntary versus involuntary, temporary versus permanent, on the rare occasion that they could free themselves. And then poverty-based versus race-based and kidnapping. Those 3 facts alone show that these institutions are worlds apart. So here's a relevant passage, Leviticus 25:39. Here's what it says. If your brother becomes poor beside you and sells himself to you, you shall not make him serve as a slave. He shall be with you a hired worker and as a sojourner. Okay, so 2 things in this passage. One, we see a choice is being made by the person. And what's driving the choice is economic destitution. They are poor. If your brother becomes poor beside you and sells himself to you. So we take for granted what happens in our society whenever a person becomes poor. We have safety nets, we have government assistance, we have nonprofits, we have the homeless shelter, we have all of these institutions that come alongside and help the poor when a person is economically destitute. So what happens in Israel? What happens in Israel when a person faces financial hardships? They sold themselves to a kinsman. That's what they did. So it was voluntary, and it was based on economic destitution. Now, the institution of slavery in America, 1, was race-based, and then 2, it was based on kidnapping. Now, what is the penalty of kidnapping in the Old Testament? What happens when you kidnap people in the Old Testament? How does God feel about kidnapping? So in Exodus 21, it says that you shall be put to death. Death penalty. That's how God feels about kidnapping. This point can't be overstressed, but these are 2 points in the same verse, Leviticus 25:39 and 40, a very important passage when talking about this issue. All right, so here's the 3rd point. So what we have in Israel, in this institution, indentured servitude is a better way to describe the institution, not slavery, is that it was temporary instead of permanent. So here's the relevant passage. Exodus 21:1 and 2. Now these are the rules that you shall set before them When you buy a Hebrew slave, so sometimes this word gets translated servant. So let's just keep that in mind. He shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th year, he shall go out free for nothing. You see that? So temporary. So the cap was 7 years. On top of that, we had the year of Jubilee. So the year of Jubilee, every 50 years, God will set all servants free and cancel all debts. So I like to think of this as a economic reset, as a what, it's like a pressure release valve. The system is overloading. And so God had this built-in economic regulator to reset the system. So regardless of what the year was, it could be year 2, year 3, year 4. When the year of Jubilee happened, every 50 year, on the 50th year, servants were set free. So the institution was capped, indentured servitude was capped at 7 years. And on top of that, every 50 years, all servants were set free. To sum things up, what we have in Israel is temporary, voluntary, and poverty-based. That is what the institution was, indentured servitude. So keep these passages in mind whenever you are encountering slavery or indentured servitude in the Old Testament. And stay tuned for more videos. Now, there are some challenging passages in the Old Testament. I'm not going to shy away from them. I'm going to do a deep dive on them. And stay tuned. I will jump into the New Testament at some point as well. This is Cortez. I'm signing off for now. Grace and peace.